Hey friends, Kevin Dairaghi. Welcome to the Kevin Dairaghi Show. You guys do not want to miss this conversation with Joe. Joe is fantastic. He's one of the guys out there making a difference in people's lives, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't struggle. One of the things that just kind of blew me away in our conversation is he deals with, how does he say it? Suicidally? He deals with the battle of suicide every single morning. But he doesn't, right? And he's used that as kind of some fuel. And now he has some houses that he brings people in, helps them transition from tents to becoming clean and sober and have jobs and out there being successful. So his transformation personally, professionally is just great. You guys are going to love this. Guys, let's go and listen in to Joe Earls. How you doing?
Great, Kevin. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Joe, I am very excited to share your story with our people. I do know that this is something that literally will change people's lives after hearing you talk. So super, super excited about that and super thankful for you being on today.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
Awesome. Hey, so Joe, first off, how did you get into this space? Did you go to college? What was your kind of path of getting into real estate?
Well, I did complete a college degree. It did take me about 15 years to get a 4-year degree. Very, very long time. Yes, off on. And we kind of, we talked a little bit about it in the pre-show, but I'll kind of catch everybody up to speed. So I spent several years in the military, went downrange to Iraq. With that, obviously, got blown up a few times. So I have what's called PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. Used to call it shell shock back in Vietnam days. And I have something called TBI, which is a traumatic brain injury. And I'll use an analogy I always use. Everybody knows this is a pen. We could be having a conversation. I will completely forget how to say pen or cup or whatever. My kids think it's hilarious. Me, not so much, as a guy, not being able to find words and that sort of stuff. But I've been able to find all new ways of learning and being successful despite the limitations that I was given based on my disabilities. But your question was about real estate. So I first read the book Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad while I was active duty in the military. That book, to say it changed my life, would be an understatement. My family, we grew up in poverty. It was a struggle, right? I mean, we never went without, but it was a struggle. I did not realize that there was other options until I read that book. So got out of the military in 2006. In 2007, I bought my very first investment property. I read the book. Now I am an expert. I'm going to go do it. Now, action's very, very important. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't take action. I had a friend that said you can't steer a parked car. It's the same type thing. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I bought that property for $10,000 online auction, 3 hours one way from my home. I'd never seen inside the property, never been to Toledo, Ohio, but I bought it anyway. We started driving up there, and every weekend we'd go and fix the house. And every weekend somebody broke in and destroyed what we had fixed. The third weekend, I got my kids with me. We're going up to fix the property. There's a guy with a gun down his pants. I'm like, that's it. We're done. I called a real estate agent, sold it. Lost $9,414.28, not to be specific. At that point, my mom is like, man, you just lost a lot of money. I said, nope, I just learned a lesson. I'll never do that again. But it didn't deter me from continuing my education and continuing to invest.
So then what did you do next? So you had the book, right, as the first stage. So what was next?
Yep. So I'll fast forward a little bit. Life kind of happened, bought some other businesses. I went through an early divorce, that sort of stuff, which obviously can be kind of devastating. But I will say everything happens the way it's supposed to, right? So had I not went through all that stuff, all of a sudden military, the divorce, I wouldn't have met my wife. Now, we actually met in college, in a business school, business class. That was 2008. We lived in Ohio at that point. We actually, through that divorce, my ex-wife moved to Kentucky. About 6 months later, me and my girlfriend, Stephanie, moved as well. And then eventually got married and all that stuff, and ended up finding out that Robert Kiyosaki actually did seminars. So we found ourselves in one of those seminars, like many people do, but we knew that we had to invest to be able to learn what we needed to learn to be able to have the future we wanted. I don't know if at the time when I worked for Robert Kiyosaki's company, out of all of us that worked there, we had paid the most. People were like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. Yes, it is. But I learned so much and made it all back plus some. It was worth it, right? So I invested in myself. And that's where I kind of fell into the education component of Robert Kiyosaki's.
Nice. It is one of those. So like we have three main tenets, right? The most important real estate is between your ears, which you just clarified. Personal drives your professional, and it's all about relationships. So thank you for underlining some of our points there about investing in yourself. When you paid for that program, did you have a coach or was it like just a bunch of paperwork?
So we bought the biggest package. We had 12 strategies that we could take, 2 mentors. So we paid for 2 different sets of mentors. We actually found out that the mentor was worth way more than the classes. I mean, the classes are great. They teach you the how-to, but the mentor really kind of guides you and takes what may be a very long journey and kind of makes it so it's more precise and more applicable to what you're trying to accomplish. So we actually traded some classes in and had 3 mentorships with 3 different individuals in 3 separate areas of real estate.
Oh, perfect. What sections did you focus on first?
The first thing we did was creative financing, learning lease options, subject to that sort of stuff. Then we did another one on tax liens and deeds. And the third one was on learning how to invest in foreclosures and those sort of things.
Excellent. So it wasn't a traditional rehab or wholesaling techniques. It was nice. So did all this stuff work out? Like how did your second deal go? Any better than the first?
Well, so you're still going to make mistakes. I don't care how much education, who you have as your mentor, you're still going to make mistakes. So while we were taking the classes, actually before our mentor came out, we started buying properties as well, using what cash we had available to acquire those. So the first 5 houses we bought, we paid cash for. Not always the best thing to do. We didn't know what we were doing. We're still learning. Whatever, we paid the top of the market. It took us from those 5 properties, it took us 5 years to reposition that portfolio to actually refinance, pull some money out, and grow. But yes, we made mistakes, but nothing that would take us out of the business, if that makes sense. Learned a lot along the way. But yeah, so very quickly found that you're eventually going to run out of cash. I don't care how much cash you have, you run out. And then we went to banks. Well, I don't care how good a relationships you have with bankers, they're only going to give you so much money. And so we capped out there too. And so our portfolio was only at a certain size and we wanted to be bigger. And so then we found creative financing. And for me, that's when my world kind of opened up and blossomed. I can still tell you the guy's name. I won't tell you his last name. First name's David. Has a house in Vine Grove, Kentucky. Had just bought it in October. That him and his wife got divorced or filed for divorce in November. And we met him in December and did a 30-year lease with the option to buy. And the cost for us to enter the property was $273.
Oh, goodness.
And so nothing. Like anybody, I don't care if you work at McDonald's, you can afford to do that strategy. We ended up then, nothing was wrong with it, brand new house, but because of his situation, they wouldn't be able to sell it because he was already underwater, right? So they had, whatever. And it was a VA, so he had borrowed 100% of what the house was worth. And so we just basically took over his debt. Our exit at that time was to put a tenant buyer in the property, and they gave us a check, an option fee in dollars. So day one, we had made like a 4,000% return on our investment. It's not a bad day. So yes, we did learn a lot. Yes, we did make some money.
Oh, that's great. Now, how did you come across some of these options? Like, how did you find these? What kind of marketing were you doing?
So at that time, we were doing direct mail, driving for dollars. That's what people typically do. Yeah. Now, in most counties, you can go to the county clerk and search on their website. We do that every week, every Tuesday to Tuesday, actually. So from the time that it's filed, because it's all public record. But from the time it's filed to the time I'm at your door or you get a piece of mail from me is no longer than 7 days. I'm almost always first. I'd rather be first or last. I don't want to kind of be in between in there somewhere. Yeah. The other thing I'll mention with foreclosures is it hits home for me. When I left the military, it wasn't planned, right? I was medically chaptered, eventually retired. I ended up with a house in Tacoma, Washington that I could not afford. I ended up bankrupt, foreclosed on, and homeless. So for me, when I'm talking to these individuals, I'm not just trying to buy their house. I'm trying to help them. Now, if it ends up me buying their house, great. But first and foremost, I want to help you. If that means you can stay in your house, let's figure out a way to do that so it's no longer an option. And that's the way that we treat it. Now, I have friends that are investors as well, and they're like, oh, well, you don't make any money off that deal. Well, you're right. I could sit with you for a couple hours, talk to the bank, and I make nothing. But I have, because I've helped you. Now, what's happened through helping people like that is, yes, we may not buy your house, but we may buy your daughter's house, because that's happened to us. The kids got in trouble and they call us and they buy their house. And sometimes with the bank, it just doesn't work out and we still buy the house. But first and foremost, we want to help the individual first.
I liken that a lot to planting good seeds, right? You
Yes.
make somebody, there's another book, Raving Fans. How can you treat your customer or client so good that they become the mouthpiece for all these other people? Oh, do you have it? But
We didn't talk about that either.
I'll tell you, it's true. I have people like, I wasn't able to buy their house, but then they're like, yeah, I sold to this other group. Don't worry about them. Talk to Kevin. It's like,
yeah.
You don't know how it always works out, but it's pretty awesome. I'm asking this question a little bit early. Usually I save this one, but I feel like there's so much more that we could unpack from here. Earlier this year, our Eads Bridge conversation talked about the three words that come out of it. Are you familiar with St. Louis and Eads Bridge?
No.
Okay. So the idea of manifest destiny, I'm a history nerd, right? So combining the East and West and getting from one side to the other and kind of the growth, et cetera, was kind of as a political thing. It was go America, 13 colonies and then up to Ohio and then up to Illinois and then up to the Mississippi, like this kind of sea to shining sea thing. But the Mississippi was awesome to help with traffic, except it stopped traffic going east to west. So it was over a mile long. It had to be so tall so the steamships could get under. Heavy currents, all this stuff, right? And it at the building materials at the time were stone, wood, and iron. And that just wasn't enough to do what, in this case, it was the railroads, wanted to do to connect it, right? So long story short, the idea of making steel. So it takes heat, it takes pressure, right? You do additives to make it stronger. You take out impurities, right? That's how you make steel out of iron. So the concept of dream, forge, finish, right, is kind of the words that came out of it, right? It was the dream, the vision to connect it, right, east-west. But the forging point is where you go through a hard time, right? Heat, pressure, bad things, but it's to make you stronger so you could do things that you couldn't do before. And then the third part is finish, right? A half-finished bridge doesn't get you over the river. As entrepreneurs and shiny objects, we get distracted a lot. And it's really important that we do finish any of these objectives. Like building a website but never hitting send doesn't really help. Writing an offer but not sending it doesn't do it. Finding all the data and not making a phone call or a door knock doesn't get you that person, right?
Right.
All that said, Joe, to ask you, what is the Joe Earls forging moment, right? What took the old Joe to the new Joe? What was that crucible for you?
Great question. I think there's several things that happen in life that is the defining moment. Like recently we opened, not recently, 2023, we opened recovery housing. And maybe we'll touch on that a little bit. But before that, it was realizing, because when you have diagnosis like PTSD and TBI, you have professionals that are telling you that based on your diagnosis, you can't do anything. Sit on the couch and collect a check. You really can't. What could you do, right? But it's finding a way to turn that disability into a defining moment or into an asset. And because I can relate with a lot of different people because of the things I've been through in my experiences that other people may not be able to reach. So realizing that, and then realizing that at the end of the day, it's people. So it doesn't matter whether you're dealing with an apartment complex, mobile home park, single family home, whatever. There's a person behind that, and being able to connect and interact with that individual puts a human element to it. And if you can build that relationship, it can serve you for generations. But as far as defining moment, so we had touched on this a little bit of the PTSD and PTSD and TBI. But with the PTSD, a lot of times, especially for combat vets, comes suicidality. So I've attempted suicide 4 times. The last time was 2016. And I had actually worked for the Department of Veteran Affairs at that time. So I was an employee in the mental health field of all things. And I got to talk with, 2014, I got to talk with a doctor whose job it was to counsel surviving family members. And as difficult as that conversation was to have, it was a very important conversation to have. At that point, that was no longer an option. Now it became, how do I help and how do I serve people that are going through those very similar situations? So oddly enough, and if you look back at all the real estate we purchased, 90% of our clients, whether that's tenant buyers or people we're buying properties from, are military. Over 90% of the transaction has been some sort of military relation where we're able to kind of help that individual as well, not just with their property, but help them in life.
Oh, great.
But I think that's where it comes from is realizing that you can turn your story into a message that can help other people.
I love that. If you go back and listen to Burn the Boats, that's kind of the concept. So I use the story of Alexander the Great when he landed over on Turkey there and started his attack on Persia. His lieutenant was like, hey, what should we do with these boats? Where do you want us to? He's like, no, burn them. We're not. He's like, what about once we beat the Persians, we'll just take their boats and go home.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those like full speed ahead. There's no plan B.
Well, and with life, there shouldn't be a plan B. You don't get a do-over in life, right? You get one go around. What you do every day matters. Especially people that have kids, like they watch everything you do. You can tell them one thing, but they're watching what you do, and what you say. And when those two line up, it's amazing the things that can happen.
How many kids you got, Joe?
Let's see, 5. We have a 4-month-old. So if he starts crying, he's actually upstairs. If he starts crying, that's why. Yes.
Dang. I tapped out with 3. I thought I was doing pretty good.
We're done at 5.
That's awesome. Good for you. 4 months, though?
Yes, 4 months.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And
he's already been, let's see. So at 4 months old, he's already been driving a skid steer, driving an excavator, doing those sort of things.
Bought his first apartment building, like, that's well done. So I want to go back to this. You talked about recovery houses.
Yes.
So tell me, as business owners, right? And then as you throw on the military, the PTSD, the TBI, these things, we know as business owners, sometimes you just want to go, F it, right? Like, and, I'm a failure. This sucks. I'm out. All these other people, it came easy. Why do I suck? And they're like, but tell me about that, right? Going through those moments and having that struggle, that pain, etc. And then also bring that into how recovery houses is kind of that transition of how you're giving back that way.
Sure. So obviously, when you're a real estate investor, with going through Ivor Kiyosaki's or any education component, the more strategies that you know, the more you can earn, right? So we learned about recovery housing back in about 8 years ago.
Yeah, go ahead and explain it too, just in case people don't know it.
Yes. Okay. So recovery housing is for people. So you can hear clean and sober, reentry home, recovery, all the same stuff. So it can be people that are coming out of incarceration. So that's the reentry population, or people that are suffering from substance use disorder or drug addiction, something like that. So those are really the 2 components that we focus on right now, and we have both populations living in our houses. And honestly, not to say it came about by accident. So we started the nonprofit in 2023, all intentions of doing it, but sometimes I need a prod. I need something in life to happen to be like, okay, wake up, do something. So we have a friend, we bought a foreclosure in 2014. We leased it to a Marine buddy of ours, leased it to a tenant buyer, him and his wife and his family. They became friends through the process. Obviously being military, we kind of have a connection. We ended up selling the house to him through the process of the lease option. He was going through, they wanted to move. So they have, all 3 of their kids have disabilities. So they moved to a ranch house, had a tenant in the house who wasn't taking care of it, wasn't paying. He could not afford to pay the mortgage. I said, great, we could take it over. We took that property over 2 months prior to, we started paying payments 2 months prior to even closing on the property. But it's because we had that relationship and we trusted him and that sort of stuff. Long story short, we got into the recovery housing because we started rehabbing the property, and we knew, so before we go into a property, I want to have 3 ways to get out of it. I want to know 3 exit strategies before I ever start doing anything to a property, before I buy it, whatever. So our initial thing was, we're going to buy this house, we're going to put some paint in it, some carpet, and we're going to rent it. As we got into the house, we realized, okay, started painting, started taking on flooring. Wow, we got to put more money into it. Well, then we're going to we can lease option it now. And we kept going and going and going, and more stuff was wrong. And we're like, what option do we have? We can't rent it. We'll never make money back in a significant amount of time. We can't lease option it. That doesn't work. And like, why don't we just make it recovery housing? Because we knew the model. We knew it worked. And so we're like, all right, let's do that. And so we started furnishing the house. Now every state is different the way they operate. Every county is different. In Kentucky, you have to go through lots of inspections. And so because some of the history of some of these housing is they would just throw people in there, collect money, and it didn't matter how many people. They'd have 20, 30 people in a house just to make the money, but not to serve the individual and help them get where they want to go. So we started furnishing the house and went through the lengthy process of getting certified, and we're able to start having residents in January. No, I'm sorry, the end of December, so early January. January to February, we had 2 residents. That's it, 2 residents. We got a mortgage, all this stuff. It's supposed to work out really good. Do we close? Like, what do we do? And we're very transparent with the residents. They all know what we're doing, the mission we're trying to accomplish. And they're like, man, you've helped us so much. People, when they find out, they'll come. I mean, sure enough. I mean, we're full. We have no beds available. We have waiting lists, all that stuff. So the financial side of it, we make 4 to 5 times in one single family home what we'd make on a regular rental. So for 5 of our rentals, we make more money from one single family home than we do from 5 others. And so it starts putting things in perspective financially. Why don't I just open more of these? More importantly than the money side of it, we're changing lives. And not just the residents' lives either. Our lives, our kids' lives, they're very heavily involved in what we do. The other thing, too, is our kids, and even us, we don't look at these individuals as inmates, addicts. They're human beings. And our kids don't look at them that way. You know, my one son, well, two of my boys, they play football and basketball. So when they go over there, that's all they talk about, football and basketball and all that stuff. Now, as a parent, though, I don't have to talk to my kids about getting in trouble. I don't have to talk to my kids about drugs because they do that. The one guy had a conversation about alcohol. Hey, this is why you don't drink. If you do this is where you... So they're very open. They're very honest about what's brought them to where they're at. But more importantly, we're able to help people and really change lives. We spoke of this a little bit before. One of the guys, there's a couple of guys that make me really excited to see where they came. The one guy got out of jail on the 14th, was at our house on the 15th. Now, I can share some stuff. I can't share names. I can't share certain stuff. But he had no credentials. So imagine you're getting out of jail. You have no identification, no social security card, nothing. And you got to get a job. Now you've got to go try to survive. And I think that's why a lot of them revert back to the crimes that they committed, because how do I make it if I have nothing? So it took this guy 5 weeks to get all of his credentials, get a job, all that sort of stuff. From the day he showed up, he had no food. And that's when else, guys, we have egos. He didn't want to ask. But we asked for him because we knew, hey, you're getting out of jail. You have no money. Like, we know you're going to need something. So the kids loved that. They went out shopping for him and picking up brownies and all kinds of other fruits and vegetables and all that stuff. Long story short, so from the day he showed up to now he is a successful member of society. Of course, he still has some things he has to comply with. He's got a job, got a car, looking at going to school and starting his own business, doing haircuts, barber stuff. To another guy that we picked up, oddly enough, these two knew each other through a ride. They got a ride somewhere and knew each other. That's how the second guy called me. When I got the phone with that guy, we were sitting at a restaurant, eating dinner, and the guy I just talked to was going to spend the night in the wintertime in the woods in a tent. And my wife's like, it's okay, he'll be fine. I said, but no, it's freezing. He could die. Picked him up that morning from the woods and some trash bags. The guy could not look you in the eye. I mean, no confidence at all, no nothing. I'm homeless. I have nothing. So fast forward a month and a half. He now is the house manager for our house. He's managing all the other 9 guys that live there, handling all the day-to-day stuff there. He now can look you in the eye, stand up for himself, well about in the community, and he just started a job at the hospital. So from where he came to where he's going now, it's amazing. And having that kind of impact on somebody, yes, we're making money. We're like, I don't hide it from these guys either. Yes, we're making money, but it's only to serve more people and it's to help more people. So we're talking about that too with these guys. Like, when do we go out and what do we do to give back? We've helped you, great, but how do we help you guys help other people?
You just reminded me, like, it's easier. I think of society and like we see these stray dogs or stray animals, and it's like, oh, we'll clean you up, we'll make you better, we'll take you in. But the homeless or the vets or whoever comes in, I'm sure there's a program for those people. That's not our job to do it. Dude, thank you for like taking these people and transforming them. Would you say, because you said you were discharged from the Army, kind of fired, right? Because PTSD.
Potentially.
And then you were bankrupt, you were homeless, all this stuff, and suicidal. Is this process of helping others get on their feet, is this therapeutic for you?
Oh yeah, because I mean, there's some nights that I work, or we work. You have late nights, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, stuff like that. Because when they call, like I've had a guy call me at 11:30 at night, needing somewhere to go. Well, we got to go meet at the house, let him in, all that stuff. But it's labor of love. Like it takes my eyes off myself and I put them on other people. And your problems, I mean, they're still there, they're still in the background, right? But you're focused on how can I help that individual better their life. And what's funny is all these guys, a majority of these guys are older than me. And so that can be kind of interesting when you're trying to teach people to have life skills and budget and all that stuff. But they're all very appreciative. But yes, it is very therapeutic. It is very helpful for both them and for us. And they look at us like their extended family. The one guy said, he said, "You've done more for me than my own family would." And so, yeah.
That's awesome. Now, how you just stumbled into this?
Well, again with the education company. I took a class. I was employed by the company, and I helped with the class. And at the time, there was 4 of us in the class. 5 if you can count the instructors. There was 5 of us. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds nice. That worked, and it sounds like a great idea. So, but I slipped up. Every time I would fly somewhere for the weekend to do training, I would tell the kids, "Hey, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing," and I ended up telling the kids what I was learning. I want to help people. And so every week we'd go somewhere and see someone that's homeless on the side of the street somewhere. And he's like, "Dad, when are we going to help that guy? When are we going to help them?" "Oh, we'll do it someday. We'll do it someday." Well, now we are. So it's teaching the kids, obviously, to don't let life let you stay down. Get up and help somebody. It was fun. On a comical note, so part of this, I do outreach. So I go to jails and prisons and that sort of stuff. I've never been locked up, nothing like that myself. So it's very interesting the first time you go into a jail. Well, my kids all know that I go to jail. Well, my daughter tells the teacher, "Hey, my dad's going to jail." And then the next week, there's like some school event. And she's like, "What's this about?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to jail. I'm speaking in jail to help." So that's always comical. But we're changing life, but we're changing the generations, right? So the kids don't look at them as, because we all make mistakes. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us in our youth did things, or even as adults, that could have got us in the same position, right? It takes one mistake. Like, you took drugs. My wife just had a surgery and she was given oxycodone. It takes one slip up and you could be just like them. One thing in life to happen and you could be in the same shoes that they're in. So I think it's important to look at that as well, as they're not just throwaway people, right? They're human beings that. And I tell them, we meet every Sunday, and every Sunday we're trying to encourage them. And I'm like, you guys are all here for a reason. Believe it or not, you're here for a reason. Because a lot of them, they come to us and they're broken and they don't know what their life holds, right? We're here because we have to be. And we just try to encourage them. But it's amazing to see that transformation in what they're becoming.
I just can't help but go back. And if you would have been successful in taking your life, look at all the people's lives that would have been not affected, right? Not positively influenced. We know suicide and tendencies and that emotional side is real. I think COVID freaking underlined that for a lot of us, myself included, especially there. But it's one of those like, man, people think it's just them, right? That little, but they don't see all these people that are affected. So, man, Joe, like, I hope you see all the good stuff that you do and all the good seeds you're planting and all the lives you're changing. I've helped one person who was a convict, right? And took him in and gave him a job, working construction when I had multiple crews and stuff. And then we bought him a house and we did all this stuff. And at first he was like, I'm a convict. And then he's not, right? Now that that sheds, it's off his record, the parole. And it's just like, now he's a business owner, and now he's looking at stuff and he's like, well, I got into, trucks, tow trucks. And then I got into this business, and now I have this license. And now the military hires him sometimes to carry vehicles in different places, like top secret clearances. And it's one of those, like, all because, he was here, but he became a different person.
Well, and I think life is funny, right? Like, you run into people, you meet people at certain times in life, and you probably couldn't, like, now you can see all those dots that are connected, but back then, you don't know where it's going to lead. And not everybody's going to want that kind of help. Not everybody's going to want, like, the biggest thing is for them to admit, hey, there's something wrong, and I do need help. Especially for guys, it's very difficult for us to ask for help. And then my wife also mentioned that we have an ego. Just don't forget to tell people, you had an ego, and she's 100% right. I went around for a very long time. Hey, I've got an ego. You can't tell me anything. I'm a business owner. I'm a real estate investor. I'm successful. Yeah, yes, I'm successful, but that doesn't mean I can't learn from you. I can learn from all these guys. I can learn from anybody. And so when you put yourself in that growth mindset to always be learning from individuals, it's amazing. Everything changes, because then you can see every opportunity, good or bad, as a learning environment.
So 5 kids.
Yes.
And you're living out loud to your family is what I'm hearing you say, right? They're seeing the properties, they're getting involved in the lives, etc. Like, tell me about that. Like, because I try to bring my boys in, and actually after our call today, after school, we're going up to paint one of our properties. Like, I want them to have skills.
Yes.
I could take them so far, but they also have to hear it from different places.
Yes.
But tell me, like, is it satisfying? Is it good? Like, what are the feel? Is it always easy? Is it difficult? Do they listen? Like, how's that?
Well, it depends on what aspect. Like, so, it depends on what task we're doing. Like, if they're going to visit the recovery house, oh man, they like that. Now, it is getting old to them a little bit because we go every week. So sometimes, like, well, can we just stay in the car? I'm like, no, you got to go, and we'll do nice things and say, okay, here's some cookies. Go hand it to the guys. The one thing I'll back up before I go down that rabbit hole. We're rehabbing a house right now. So we have a house in a different county, and we're adding on to it to move to. And so with that, you've got, all the framing to do, all the plumbing, all that stuff. Well, last weekend we were there painting, and my one son was under the house doing plumbing, and he didn't want to get under and do plumbing. I'm like, dude, all you got to do is hold the plumbing. Just hold it. Help him hold it. That's all I need to do. But he argued with me, and I said, look, now we do pay them, so they do get paid. But so you're learning a skill that you will value later on in life. And it just like you, it took somebody else to tell him the same thing for him to really appreciate what he's doing. But yeah, so you have those days that are bad. You have days where, like, my one son, he's 11. He has at 3:00, like, he's good in the morning. He's good. But once 3:00 comes, oh my goodness, he's a terror. He doesn't, whatever. He can only last so long. So he'll tell you, hey dad, it's getting, it's Godzilla's about to come out. It's getting close to time. And some nights we work until pretty late at night trying to work on this house and get things rough and ready and that sort of stuff. But all in all, I think they enjoy what they're doing. I mean, they've all helped with excavators and heavy equipment. And they love that. And then they love helping the guys. So it's very rewarding. And they've already started investing and doing those sort of things as well. And so my other ones, my oldest is 21, 13, 11, and 9, and all 3 of those kids are already investing. Oddly enough, when we're putting together this recovery house, because we taught them about, like, compound interest and all that stuff. So can we invest with you? Can we buy a bed, whatever it costs to buy the bed, the sheets, the pillow, all that stuff? Can we do that? I'm like, let's get some people in here first that's making money, and then we can do it. So both of our kids have now bought beds, and they're going to work toward buying a room and then buying a house. And by that, I mean, they're not going to buy the entire house, but they're going to help us to invest in the furniture and that sort of stuff. And as a result, they'll get a return. But they love talking about these or meeting these guys and then figuring out ways that they can serve them. So for Easter, the kids decided it was a good idea to get Easter baskets for these guys. We like Easter baskets. Let's get them Easter baskets. So they all wrote, and my wife helped them with this. She's very creative. Every guy had a unique saying, a unique message for each guy. And then they fought over who was going to give who which Easter basket. Now, you would think it's an Easter basket with a little handwritten card. It doesn't mean anything to these guys. When I was helping a guy pack up his stuff to move into his own apartment, who had came from a hotel, being homeless, in his box, his shoebox, was the handwritten thing from Easter. I go in this morning to meet with some of the guys. They have a social worker coming over. I just want to make sure everything's good. And on the wall is another note from another guy on the wall. So the little things that we're doing is sticking, and they're realizing that we care. And unlike most, so in Kentucky, well, everywhere, most people start these kind of homes solely for the income because you can make us a lot of money, substantial amount of money. Yes, we need to make money. You have to, in order to run a business, you have to make money. But our number one goal is to change their lives. Because if we serve enough people, we will be blessed. And that's what we found. So hopefully that answers your question.
I just think it's awesome to be able to live openly, right? Because part of my story, I have these kids, I have these boys, and I just was always annoyed when I had to be the parent. It sounds bad, right? But it was like, I have a business, I need to focus on my stuff. You're running to your little kid game, running to your thing is just stopping me from doing this. And it was just one of those and then I applied actually some of my coach's stuff for business to personal. I was like, wait, I want to be known for a good dad. Like, I don't want to be the absent father or the dad, I want to. And then I was looking at the good dads, and I was starting to mimic what they're doing. And, and then now it's everybody just assumes I'm a great dad, but it's like, right. Dude, it wasn't a natural skill.
Correct.
It was something, and they've watched me grow up.
Yep. Well, and I think when you run a business, it doesn't matter what business it is, it can be hard to, and I've always had this challenge, it can be hard to find the balance, between the business and the family. And I still struggle. I'm nowhere near perfect. One of the biggest or eye-opening things for me is I coached in Ohio. I helped the kids were playing flag football because it was after season or before season. I can't remember. I think it was after season. And they were trying to do a flag football team. And so I'm like, all right, we'll sign them up for that. And I thought that's as far as it would go. We're just going to sign them up. Well, then they kept asking for coaches. I'm like, well, I coached the military, but I've never played sports. I did. I played football one time and broke my femur. I never played again. So I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to coach them in football. But I told the guy, I said, okay, my little brother played football. If I can coach, can he be my assistant? It was the best experience we had. We had kids that never played football, never played a team sport, hated football, but we're going because mom says we got to go. Lost the first 4 games. Won the last 4 games and lost the championship by 1 point.
Oh,
these kids. So we moved to Ohio, from Ohio to Kentucky. All the parents begged us to stay because we try to teach them life skills, not just football. Life skills. How do you be a good athlete? How do you be a good student? That sort of stuff. You're a student athlete. You're a student first, and try to teach them life skills. And then we try to make it fun. So we had practices where we'd bring out a karaoke machine, and they'd be dancing and doing football drills and. Just they're kids, make it fun. But it was one of the most rewarding experiences I had, as well as my brother. And I'm actually looking at coaching, being assistant coach at the school here. But you realize that the kids don't care how much money you have. They don't care. They want dad. They want mom, whoever it is. They want your time. So yes, I'm still a work on progress in that. I think all of us can definitely work in that area. But yeah.
I noticed for me and you probably had this with your coaching football stuff, but it was one of those. The more I was coaching my students in real life, my business people, the better dad I became. The better dad I became, the better coach it's a very usable skill that, you think one and then the other, but it's like, no, man, that's kind of what a parent is. It doesn't mean you don't have bad days or you lose your cool, but it's also one of those hey, this happened. Okay. I wish you would have just listened and but I'm not a helicopter parent. I don't know how you operate. So with the kids, example, I'll have them do yard work now, on some of the properties. So it's okay, here's a lopper, here's a this, here's a this, here's a lawnmower. We need to do 1, 2, 3. I would, this is what needs to happen. How are you going to handle this? And then, okay, My oldest is Alex. I'm like, Alex, you're in charge of these 2. Do you understand what you're doing? Yes. Okay. Do you guys understand how to? Yes. Okay. This tool, like, if you do this, you could really hurt yourself. Don't do that. But you know, like, okay, we got it. And I'm not telling them what to do, but it's one of those, here's your scope of work.
Yep.
You know, you need to learn leadership. And how do you learn some of this stuff? By figuring it out. But that's how I was taught. It wasn't, this is how you hold the drill. It's, I'm going to hold this until you know, and then you're like, well, it works best like this. Not saying I don't try to help them, but it's also like, I want you to understand what it feels like. And now now that you're listening, let me help you.
And then also having them understand, like, doing something the right way the first time and not having to go back, because we'll make that, if they do it wrong, if they don't complete the task, I make them go back and redo it until it's right. And that's frustrating for them. But I'm like, you have to learn to do things a certain way, because at some point you're going to be an employee probably, or own a business. You've got to know how to do certain things and not take shortcuts. The other thing too is we don't let, I don't know about you or anybody else listening, that we don't allow our kids to say can't, because that automatically just cuts out, like, there's no possibility. So can't is not something that our kids can say. It's not in their vocabulary. Or try, because try means you're not going to do it. That's an excuse to give up. But I was trying to think what was my thought process here. Oh, they got to learn to do stuff the right way the first time and not make excuses for why things go bad. Because one of my kids, and I don't remember what the situation was, but they were talking about how this didn't happen because of this. I said, no, you're old enough. We don't make excuses. You could have done this, or this, and had a different outcome. You know, you got to learn to take responsibility. Like, there's a book back there called Extreme Ownership, written by some Navy SEALs, and you got to take ownership for your life. I know you may only 13 or 11 or whatever, but you have to take ownership. Now, there's certain things you can't do. Now, what's funny is, like, my kids, they'll want, like, macaroni and cheese or something, and so they can all cook, and they're like, well, I'm hungry. Well, go make yourself some lunch. It's right there. Just don't hurt yourself. Giving them some responsibility, but also teaching them, like you said, if you're doing it wrong, let me show you how to do it, and then you go ahead and do it. But you're teaching them life skills as well. And I think a lot of kids need that. You know, like teaching the kids about investing and about balancing a checkbook and doing those sort of things. You know, when they work, we pay them. So then, well, can I get this? Like, yeah, sure. You want a video game? Great. It's going to be this much and you're going to buy it. And so they start having the question, well, do I really want that video game? Or would I rather spend that money somewhere else? So you're teaching them lessons too in that format as well.
I'll tell you, there's no book on parenting.
I wish there was.
You know, like, here's the right way. Well, I mean, because I remember growing up, like in our family, we weren't extreme poverty, but we didn't have money, right? Growing up, and our neighbors, they were doing pretty good, right? And they had a handful of kids. I'm youngest of 5, just to give you an idea. They would be like, oh, yeah, our kids are small. Every week we put in $50, $100 per kid for their college. Like, you know, now the accounts are, you know, they would say the numbers, and it made my parents feel bad because they didn't have another dollar to put towards whatever. And, you know, so they just felt small the whole time, right? Financially wise. Fast forward, right? Our kids and my dad's now deceased, but like our super tight unit, all this stuff. And they didn't turn out that way. They didn't talk to each other. Some of them didn't even show up for their parents' funeral. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of animosity in that situation. And here you thought they had everything, right? Even the extra money. And it turns out they didn't go to college. Just, it was dreams that were never cashed, you know?
Yes.
And all of us ended up going to college because that was important to my parents. All of us ended up, you know, it's one of those, we were all there when Dad died. We were all there, you know, it's funny what you invest in, and it's not always the money. It's not always things like that, but you can invest in relationships and health and happiness and things like that. And it is funny to watch that grow in what people now deem successful.
Right. Well, the other thing, I think the other thing too that a lot of people do is they compare themselves to somebody else. Like, hey, this person's here and I'm here. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, everybody's dealing with life and everybody's life is different. So you never know what's going on behind closed doors in that household. So why compare yourself to them? You know, we all have different challenges, right? And so I think that's something else to look at too, is how do you evaluate success? I mean, first off, if you wake up, you're successful because at least you're alive, right? And so there's always an opportunity at that point to grow and to impact somebody else.
I've been told, I don't know this, that once you do have these tendencies like suicidal type stuff, it never goes away.
It doesn't.
But how do you handle that now? Like, do you still have tendencies, or is it
So,
something that goes
so
away?
yes. So every day, and it's been this way since 2003. Since I went to Iraq, got blown up, all this stuff happened. I've dealt with suicidality every day. Normally it's in the morning, and I always try to, my wife's very good about helping. We've been together 16 years, so she can tell if something's off, something's wrong. Like, so she probes. It's okay. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for me, but she does. And then I always try to put myself in a mindset of positive and gratitude. Like, I listen to something motivational every day to try to rechange that mindset, if that makes sense. But it's always there, and it's probably always going to be there. Like the PTSD, they say, well, you can fix it. I've talked to Vietnam vets that have had it for 50, 60 years, and they're still dealing with it. So, like, I don't think it ever goes away, but it's how do you live your life amongst the chaos that you have? And there's a way. You just got to figure out for you what is that way. And for everybody's different, right? Like, some people may be good going to counseling every week. Some people may be good going to church, but some things may not, or medication. I don't, I can't tell you what's the right way for you, and you can't tell me what's the right way for me. But everybody's different the way they deal with that. But you are correct that typically once it's there, it's there. You got to fight that monster. But
I didn't know it was
having,
a daily fight, Joe. That's intense. Have you read the
getting
book
out of it.
Miracle Morning?
I've heard of it.
So in it, he talks about savers, right? So sit in silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing or journaling,
Yep.
right? So the gratitude is what it sounded like. In the morning, you do your, in a sense, your mental stretches, right?
Yes.
And that's what a great habit to have. I do affirmations, and it's funny, like when you get off of your morning affirmations, it's a little habit that's, it's not a big deal. But then it is a big deal when you like, when you stop doing your push-ups, when you stop going for your walk and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just not grounded. Like, I just don't feel
Right.
like really ready. Like, you're still groggy later in the day. And it's like, oh, I didn't do the little habit stackings that I normally do.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like that's what your routine is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's so much at stake. With the PTSD and depression and all that stuff. For most people, like, I got to go to work today. I got to worry about getting out of bed today. Like, not to mention just, it's like that's why I said earlier, everybody's fight is a little bit different. And there's a lot of people that deal with very similar issues. But it's how do you be able to just get up and live your life, not be trapped in that little space. And it's allowing yourself, I think, a lot of times to be uncomfortable. So many people they want to live in their little comfort zone or little box. Well, get outside your box.
Yeah.
Like, so what if things go wrong? So what if you lose a little bit of money? Doesn't matter. You can make it back. Look at where you want to go and look at your time. That's one thing I don't like is people wasting time. Like, that's something I'm never going to get back. I have money, I can lose money, I can make it back. But my time, don't waste my time.
You got me thinking about this. Like, do you deal with shame?
Yeah, so me and the guys at the recovery house just had this conversation. So I don't fear failure, and I have survivor's guilt and a whole bunch of other stuff. I fear being successful. And what's that mean? And it's very good. I guess it's good to have that issue, so to speak, because we have a guy that's dealing with just that same issue. And it opened up a very beautiful dialogue with all these guys. These are grown men, some of them I think the youngest is 26 and the oldest is 57 and everywhere in between.
Oh, that's
good. And we're talking about emotions and feelings. And it's kind of weird to see grown men, especially grown men that have done some of the things these guys have done, talking about their feelings and how they interpret certain things. But being able to know that my struggle has been able to help somebody else because I was able to have victory over it and keep going. Now, if I didn't have victory over that, then I couldn't help them,
right.
But yes.
So in my story, Tale of Two Coaches and Burning the Boats and some of these other ones, like my shame was I was a prideful youth, right? Because you know everything when you're 18, just
yes.
How it works. The older you get, you find out you don't know as much. But I got brainwashed and baptized into a cult, and then I woke up in a sense, and it's one of those like, you want to shove that story away. You don't want anybody to know you failed, right? But now it's like, hey, the more vulnerable you are, you tell people, guess what? You can't hurt me. Like, that doesn't hurt me anymore. Like, And I find a lot of people could actually use that. Like we talk about being authentic. Guess what? Like we're not dressed up. We don't have ties on. Like this is us, right? This is our life. We live out loud and people follow.
So that's one thing that when I worked for Rich Dad, that's one thing I hated is a tie. I mean, I just like why? Like I don't wear this in my real life. Why am I? Now I get it. You got a certain image that you're trying to make. I got it. You got a certain image, but yeah, I'm more comfortable speaking like this and that sort of stuff. But
my thing was khakis. When I was corporate, they're like, "Oh, it's relaxed. You could wear a collar and some khakis." I'm like, "Khakis are not relaxed."
Yep.
So my wife keeps buying me khakis. I keep never wearing them, throwing,
Yep.
Like they're out. No more khakis. Not
well, I think like you talk about being authentic. I think it's important for people to be authentic because if all you're doing is hiding like who you really are and what's really going on, you lose the opportunity to help other people. And that's what we're all about, right? You should be able to help every other person and not let your ego just get in the way. Well, I don't want people to know that about me. So what? That's my past. Like, it's not who I am today. It's stuff that happened to me. It's okay.
Yeah.
And like teaching these guys that are coming out, like, yes, you did this horrible thing. Yes, you made a mistake when you were 21 years old and you did whatever, 20, 30 years for it. That's not you. You've changed. Yeah, it's still on a piece of paper that's who you are, but you have the capacity to change and impact other people. And so I think that's what's beautiful about it is you can help redirect somebody's thinking of, hey, I'm this or I'm that to more of a positive light. And the way they start seeing themselves and acting, really, you're impacting and changing lives. I mean, I just love it.
Joe, as we're wrapping up here, I have a couple last questions. But if you could go back and give your younger self some advice, right? Or, some of these people that you're taking in that were in a similar situation as you were, what kind of advice did you wish you would have received? Or what do you tell these guys when you're picking them up, right, in a tent on a freezing day? Like, what is it that you tell or would want to be told at times like this?
I think two things. So number one, don't let your ego get in the way of where you're trying to go. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I know a lot of people don't want to ask certain questions or don't want to be vulnerable. Like I feel stupid, whatever. And then take immediate action. Don't sit there and do nothing. Like I said, I learned about this 8 years ago. Well, how many lives could I have changed had I started 8 years ago? Now, I can't go back and change that. I can't go back and change how certain things happen. Everything happens the way it's supposed to. But there was an opportunity where I could have served more people. And I think if people would start sooner, you're not going to figure it all out. I mean, let's just be honest. I don't care who's helping you. You're not going to know all the answers. You could plan everything out, but the one thing that's going to go wrong is the one thing that you never could have predicted. So just start. Just take action. I think it's the biggest thing. Take action, daily action, and then find somebody out there to hold you accountable. Because we're the owners of the foundation, owners of the house. We allow the guys to hold us accountable, just like we hold them accountable. So it's doing that, being vulnerable and allowing others to pour into you and hold you accountable.
This isn't one of the questions, but you got me interested. Like when somebody graduates from your house, like that guy who went to apartment, is it like a graduation ceremony? Are you proud? Are you sad to lose them? Like, what is that feeling like?
You have mixed emotions because yes, they're leaving and they've been a part of your life for a couple months, a month, whatever, however long it takes for us to get them from point A to point B. But you're also grateful because you've been able to help that individual get to. Now, funny, the guy that left, he's like, man, I just no way. My credit sucks. I can't get an apartment, whatever. I said, great. Here's this guy. He's a mortgage broker. He'll help you for free with your credit. So, but he didn't even get a chance to even finish that because we know one of the largest real estate investors here. So call this guy and got him into a place. But so it's bittersweet. You love that they're succeeding and love that they're moving on, but you're losing that individual and that dynamic to the house because everybody there. It's weird because you got 10 guys in a house, right? And so all of them have their own stories, their own things they're dealing with, and their own personalities. So trying to mesh these different personalities together is very interesting. And seeing the way that they support each other, that's the one thing I do like is we got a new guy coming, I think Friday. He's worried. I haven't got a job. I said, we got that figured out. We got that figured out. Like, because we set the example with the first guy, made sure he had a ride everywhere he's going, made sure he had food, made sure he had socks. We set the expectation. Now, everybody that's come after him, we've got you covered. And so I like that. So it's bittersweet though.
Oh man. All right. So I now I'm using this as a standard question, right?
Yes.
But is there like a quote, a word, a scripture, a poem? Is there something that you hang on to sometimes when times are tough that you just keep telling yourself, whether it's an affirmation or, whatever it is, like what is one of those quotes or messages that you hold on to?
It's a great question. I think a couple of things. Well, growth solves everything, right? So as you're growing, now that doesn't just mean financially, but if you're always growing intellectually, always learning stuff, always interacting with people, it puts you in that forward momentum where you're not going backwards. So that's definitely one thing. The other thing I think that is beneficial to realize is when you are in the military and you go overseas and you see the horrible things of war, there's some beautiful things that happen, of course. There's a lot of bad. I went at 19. So at 19, your frontal lobe isn't fully developed until like 25. It defines who you become. And because I saw death at such a early age, you start to appreciate it more. Not death. You start to appreciate your life more and realize that life is gone in an instant. And so what can I do today to have the most impact? And the other thing I would say is I've never looked back on anything I've done and said, well, man, that's the best I could have done. So knowing that regardless of how good that day is, you can still do more. And so it just gives you something else to kind of strive for.
Reminds me of We Were Soldiers, like, when Hal Moore is training, there's always one more thing you could do. There's, what is that quote? 1% better. All you have to do is be 1% better every day. Compounding effect.
Yes.
Joe, it's been fantastic talking with you. Can you believe we've already gone through an hour just in this?
That's crazy. It's crazy how fast time goes.
Some of this just flies by. What you're doing, one, your story, sharing it, like the vulnerability side of it, but then also what you're using that as fuel to actually drive. Dude, you're making a difference. That is fantastic. The fact that you're making your mission field vets who need vets or convicted felony, like the stuff that all the politicians talk about, where's their action? It's
not there, at least in Kentucky. So every area is different, but in Kentucky it's hard, but yes.
So I do want to say thank you from all of us, right, that are listening to this. Like, it's people like you, Joe, that are changing what the scenery looks like, what the new okay really is. So thank you, A, for your service in the military and stepping up, but then also for carrying the mission forward and helping your brothers out there. That is just, it truly is amazing. And I don't think we fully understand how much weight is on your shoulders doing this, right? How many demons and battles you fight just to get out of bed, to get out there and do it. So, dude, seriously, thank you from all of us. And thank you so much for stepping up and continuing the mission. So, Joe, thank you for sharing this story.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Wasn't that an amazing conversation? Joe freaking crushed it. I just, from the early talk going through, that to me went so fast talking to him. He lost in his first deal. He got a divorce, right? He's been bankrupt. He's been homeless. He's basically been fired from the military, right? Because of PTSD and all this stuff, right? This constant battle that he has, yet he's turning it around and becoming an awesome dad and raising his kids up, and his wife is integrated into his business. He's out there creating successful people, right? Taking people literally that we as Americans, as society, have kind of kicked out literally to the curb. From a homeless situation, he's given them a home and then kind of graduating them up and forward and helping them get jobs. God, it's fantastic. It's fantastic what he's doing. So what, did you notice he ended up using his past, right, the military, and that's kind of his niche now. He's using different tactics, right, the lease options and the group homes and different things like that. But it's mostly inside that military space. So it is really kind of cool to see how that has happened. He is attracting people that were like him, right? And helping them transition just the way that he has. I love the fact that he became a football coach and then was so impacting all the kids and the students that went through that program. Like, gosh, this is wonderful stuff. Sometimes just showing up and being authentic is truly, truly powerful. So, Joe, thank you for being such an inspiration to not only me today, but to all the people out there that are struggling and also surviving out there and growing as people. It does make a difference. Think of all those people that you've connected and made better people because you're here today. So that is fantastic stuff. So I want to say thank you to our sponsors, right? So we have Lois Mann's Farmers Insurance. We have Greg Mann's Upright Construction. Adam Dairaghi with the CRS team, Complete Realty Services. So they're property management. We have Essex Lending. Peter and Tom, and we also now have a new sponsor, Red Maples Construction and Jason Hudson. So, guys, thank you for your continued support to make sure that this podcast is going out there. Jake and the Doorward team are doing a fantastic job. So, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for listening and supporting us. So, guys, thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon.